you, Carolyn. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out and spending your Sunday afternoon with us. We are really excited to put on this event and have you here today. You all are familiar with David Allen's work. That's what brought you here, right? He has been writing about pop culture and music and local history and finding those local links to those national stories to bring those stories home here for a long time. In fact, this month, and maybe in 9 days, David will be celebrating 29 years with the Inland Valley Daily Bulletin. That's quite a feat. Now, in more recent years, as our industry has changed, David's coverage area has expanded. He's written about this, right? To the Sun, the Redlands Daily Facts, and the Press Enterprise. Now, that's a huge area. We know that that's a huge area, right? And there's only one David. But I can tell you that David strives to build connections in the community. He's out and about and connecting with readers like all of you. He's out and about, and there are nights when he'll be in San Bernardino at the city council meeting, writing about what's playing out over there. And then he's in Riverside, and he'll be at the beach, writing about the arts in the city here, or he'll be tagging along for the harvest at the parent navel orange tree. And then he's in Montclair, and he's touring a new housing development there. David really does get around the Inland Empire. You're likely to find him out and about. Now, as David's editor, I can tell you that David loves what he does. And that is clear, right, in his writing. It's authentic. His writing is clever and witty and thoughtful, and it brings the heat when warranted. And that is a clear sign and tells me that David is having fun. And in turn, that makes reading his columns so much fun for all of us. So without further ado, let's give a warm welcome to David Allen.
Thank you for this first meeting of the Press Enterprise Subscriber Club. We got every Press Enterprise subscriber here. And a few plus ones. Maybe we can convince you to subscribe. When I give these talks frequently around Ontario and Upland and the places where I've been known for a long time. So in some sense, this isn't really new to me. But the other day there was, when we had our morning newsroom Zoom call, one of the editors who heard about it said, "Oh, what are you going to do in this talk?" And I'm like, well, I'm going to read some columns and talk about newspapers. And I thought, maybe I'm thinking too small, like maybe I should have said oh, I'm going to start with some shadow puppets. It's Jackie, it's Shadow. And then maybe do a Shakespeare soliloquy, and then maybe a cooking demonstration. But I think I'm just going to stick with talking about newspapers. It's really more what I'm comfortable with. Usually, I'm going to do these, like I said, around other parts of the IE. It's like libraries or historical societies or service clubs have had me speak. I'll read, talk a little bit, take questions, sell some books. Typical talk begins with me reading this column from 2006, and so rather than mess up a good thing, I'll read that. This one is headlined, "Trip to Lab Turns into a Free Ride." On Monday morning, I visited a lab to have blood drawn. Things didn't go entirely as planned in the sense that after having needles poked in both arms, I blacked out. In another unexpected development, yours truly was the subject of a 911 call. I left the lab strapped to a gurney. Paramedics wheeled me out the door for an ambulance ride to the hospital. I don't want to say I needlessly complicate routine tasks, but imagine if the lab had also taken my temperature. I might have wound up being defibrillated. Now, before you panic on my behalf, let me fast forward to the end. I'm just fine. So you can laugh at my tale of personal calamity with a clear conscience. I needed blood drawn for an upcoming checkup. Before a blood draw, you're supposed to fast for at least 10 hours, which I did. Unfortunately, due to a big mid-afternoon meal the day before, I didn't have dinner, which meant that when I showed up at the lab in Upland, I hadn't eaten for 18 hours. The receptionist checked me in and handed me a comment card to mail in later. A comment card at a blood lab? I wondered what I could comment on, the size of the needle? Needles and medical procedures in general make me nervous, by the way. But I'd had blood drawn at this lab once before and it went fine. This time, however, the phlebotomist couldn't get much blood from a vein in my right arm. She said I might be somewhat dehydrated. Warning sign number 1. So she drew blood from my left arm. This went better, but as I held the cotton ball to my arm afterward, I began feeling lightheaded. I considered asking if I could lie down. Next thing I knew, I was coming out of a deep slumber. Several voices were asking if I was okay. My eyes focused slowly. I was hot, sweaty, groggy, and could barely speak. A paper towel was slid onto the counter atop my copy of that morning's Daily Bulletin, which had a big wet stain on it. Apparently, I drooled all over it. I was asked my name and birth date. Someone said they'd call 911. I was told I'd gone stiff and I'd begun to fall out of my chair when someone caught me. One asked, "Have you ever had a seizure before?" Oh boy. I mumbled answers and, seeking a moment's respite, rested my head on the wet paper towel. This was going to be a long morning. Soon paramedics burst in. They asked my name and birth date. I hope I get birthday presents out of this. Still woozy, I was helped up, given an oxygen mask, placed on a gurney, and ferried through the lobby past patients waiting to give blood. I can't have been good for business. In the back of the ambulance, a paramedic inserted an IV to rehydrate me. Oh great, another needle. I was feeling a bit better. We bumped along on Surface Street to San Antonio Community Hospital. To my regret, we didn't use the siren. I was checked into the emergency room and given a backless gown. EKG buttons were attached and more questions asked. I was left to get my strength back. 2 patients were brought in and positioned near me on the walkway. A teenager had overdosed. A laborer had fallen off his ladder. All the real beds were full. "Is this a busy morning?" a man asked. A nurse said, "It's slower than usual." A doctor checked on me and concluded a combination of needles and hunger had done me in. I said I'd like to eat something, and he ordered me up a hospital lunch. As I like trying different restaurants, this was a rare treat. The food was fine, but given my drafty gown, I have to say I didn't care for the dress code. A couple of people passing my gurney recognized me from my column photo. One asked, "Are you here for a cure for writer's block?" Once cleared to leave, my IV was taken out and a copious amount of tape yanked from my arm. Now that was the most painful part of the whole morning. I went home, freshened up, went to work, and later to a 3-hour Pomona City Council meeting. So maybe my judgment was impaired, but at least I felt fine. I also stopped by the lab. Knowing my blackout must have alarmed everyone, I felt I should let them know I was fine. They were relieved to hear it. Still, for the sake of all concerned, it's probably best if I don't fill out their comment card. So, in a way, like you said, this is kind of a typical thing that I've done dozens, if not hundreds of times in the last 25 years, but a couple of things are different about it. One is that my employers actually are organized and sponsored this. I guess after 29 years, they're like, "Oh, we've heard good things." So, usually when I do these, I draw anywhere from like 3 people to 50 people. It's all a kind of a crapshoot on how many people are going to show up. In this case, marketing department put their full marketing muscle behind this. They had enough money in the coffee can apparently to sponsor an event, so that's appreciated. I had a few, of course, requests of them. One, can we do it at a fun place? They said, check, sure. 2, how about Riverside? Come back to that. They said, sure. Said, could I have a bottle of water? They said, yes. I said, could I have 2 bottles of water? They said, we'll work on it. I said, I have seasonal affective disorder. Could we have a sunny day? And they said, not a problem. Now the part that's in Riverside, this is the first, I've done 4 talks in Riverside in the 5 years that I've been writing in the Press Enterprise. One was at the Presbyterian Church, so it was just for a group of Presbyterian Church members. 2 times were with the Kiwanis Club, so it was just Kiwanis members, and once was at the Riverside Women's Club, which was mostly women, and mostly club members. This is the first time it's actually been, that somebody has sponsored me, which was, of course, my employers, to speak in Riverside. So that's cool, as far as I'm concerned. I'm still feel relatively new here. It's been 5 years. I guess it's a thing now that I'm in the PE. I will read my first Press Enterprise column for you. Hopefully some of you read this July 1st of 2020. Of course, we all know what happened in 2020.
Yep. COVID.
Yes. We already got a free book, so you don't need another one. This is headlined, "A Socially Distant Hello as Columnist Reach Expands to Riverside County." So there I was, minding my own business for a change, when my editor rang with some news. My columns, a staple of the Inland Valley Daily Bulletin and Sun, would also start running in the Press Enterprise. The first thing I did was take a fast walk around my neighborhood to burn off some nervous energy. Only some. The nervous energy lingered all of last week, which was vacation, or coronacation, and now that I'm at a keyboard again, I can't say the anxiety has gone away. But here I am, Press Enterprise readers, in your morning newspaper and website. Try not to spill coffee on me. I've got jitters enough already. Let me explain. I've been writing a column since 1997 for the Daily Bulletin, which covers the San Bernardino County West End and Claremont, Laverne, and Pomona across the LA County border. My beat is broad. People, places, local history, local government, local references in popular media, arts and culture, public transit, and personal stories, usually with a light touch. Last year, my columns also began appearing in the Sun, which, like the Bulletin, is part of the Southern California News Group. That started July 3rd, 2019. A year later, almost to the day, these columns are now running in a third SCNG newspaper, the Press Enterprise, which, as you Riverside County folks know, is the largest and most prestigious of the 3 papers. In one swoop, my audience has more than doubled. I shudder to think what will happen to me in July 2021, possibly the first in a series of demotions. This is by nature an awkward introduction because I'm having to address a new audience and the old audience in the same forum. That said, I may not be a total mystery to you PE readers. A few of my columns have appeared in your pages, most recently a month ago when I ventured to Riverside for a coronavirus test. For the record, I was negative. Gosh, what a surprise, a negative journalist. Still, an occasional slot is far different than 3 times a week, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. I'm going to be a regular presence in the PE just as I am in the Bulletin and Sun. As someone who recalls the glory days of these newspapers in our ever-shrinking industry, it's an unexpected honor to be in the PE. On the same pages that boasted Dan Bernstein as columnist from 1982 to his 2014 retirement, as well as Cassie McDuff until her departure in 2016. I'm no Bernstein and won't even try. For one thing, I can't whistle. Also, because my columns are appearing over such vast territory, Pomona to San Bernardino to Riverside, there won't be the laser-like focus he was able to bring. So, I'm your metro columnist, Riverside and environs, but you'll have to accustom yourself to reading about, say, Upland on a regular basis. Candidly, that's the main reason I'm nervous. At the risk of disappointing everyone, I'm at the risk of disappointing everyone, new readers and old readers alike. Imagine conversation. Riverside, great. We have a metro columnist for the first time in 4 years, and here he is writing about Claremont. Ontario, meanwhile, would say, who cares about Riverside? We have an airport. Meanwhile, San Bernardino would say, I respect those opinions, especially as I made them up. But they ring true in my mind. I love local journalism, having worked at a series of weekly and small dailies around California since 1987, including in lovely Petaluma. In all honesty, writing a column solely for the Daily Bulletin territory for the rest of my career would have been fine with me. Alas, as newspapers consolidate, the job of Daily Bulletin columnist doesn't precisely exist anymore. Ditto with Sun columnist or PE columnist. Everybody gets one guy, me, who's now in Walt Whitman territory. I am large, I contain multitudes. Newsflash to Walt Whitman, so does the Inland Empire. So now, I'm the columnist for the entire IE. How's this going to work? It'll be a series of experiments, frankly, with a mix of very local, regional, and personal columns. Not every column will be of interest to every reader, but my hope is that if you don't like one column, the next one will be to your liking. And pandemic is not, needless to say, the ideal time for embarking on a role that normally would see me out and about, exploring in person, meeting lots of new people, and shaking their hands vigorously. So all I can do is ask for your patience. One benefit that I foresee from this bigger platform, anything I write about will be seen by readers in 2 counties, Riverside and San Bernardino, and in a portion of a third, LA. My advice, be on your best behavior. Thank you for indulging me today. As for producing columns under these new conditions, I don't know quite how I'm going to do it, but we'll find out together starting Friday. All right, here's one that you may or not have read or remember from October of 2020. Headline, Tortillas at Ancho's in Riverside show flour power in LA contest. The flour tortillas at Ancho's Southwest Grill are no secret in Riverside, where customers have been coming back for 30 years to watch them being made, enjoy them tableside, and take home a bag or two. But now, tortilla tastemakers in Los Angeles have taken notice. In the fun KCRW-FM Tortilla Tournament, where restaurant tortillas are matched against each other in NCAA style, Ancho's was entered by tournament founder Gustavo Arellano. And Ancho's won its bracket the first 2 weeks, knocking off the Cafe Rio chain and then rolling over the highly regarded DTL restaurant Sonoratown. Judge Mona Holmes from Eater LA said in the first round regarding Ancho's, just lovely. Salty, thick, flakes well, and it's almost like a pita. I just have not tasted a tortilla like this. So pleasing and can eat 4 in a row with nothing on it. While declaring her love for Sonoratown, the tournament's number 2 seed, Holmes called the week 2 bracket as an upset for Ancho's tortillas. It has layers of flavor. It's wonderful. She really buttered up these tortillas. Alas, Ancho's got knocked out in round 3 last week, with Holmes reluctantly giving the nod to Bar Ahmad, the Joseph Centennial restaurant in DTLA, writing, I mean, this was a nail biter, folks. Rather, tortilla biter. All this was news to Ancho's owner Dean Bergstrom, who was unaware of the tournament or its results. When we met in person Thursday, I described the brackets to him. So we made the Sweet 16, he joked? Final 4, March Madness? More like Masa Madness, but yes. Bergstrom said Ancho's tortillas had never really received recognition outside Riverside before, but when he's out and about and mentions that he owns Ancho's, the response is often along these rapturous lines. Ancho's? Oh, those tortillas. Ariano tipped me off a couple of weeks ago that Ancho's was going to do well. I slipped in for a dinner carnitas on the patio one night. The complimentary tortillas were fabulous, like a pita, yes, or a very airy pancake. The server brought back a second batch, most of which I took home and ate over the next few days. I made a formal visit Thursday afternoon to learn more. While I waited outside, a couple hurried back to the check-in station anxiously. They had just left and forgotten their tortillas. Might they still be on the table? The husband was allowed inside and a minute later was triumphantly holding the plastic bag. Who says newspapers never print good news? Bergstrom gave me the lowdown on the restaurant's origins. He discovered Tex-Mex food while in Texas working at a corporate job. When he and 2 co-worker buddies were transferred to Riverside, they decided to start a Tex-Mex restaurant here. Ancho's, named for a chili, opened at 10773 Hole Avenue in the La Sierra neighborhood in 1989. Ancho's has been a success despite what Bergstrom admits is a weird spot in a plaza that has never had a strong anchor and that today is home to county offices. He's now the sole owner of Ancho's after the other partners dropped out or retired. Now, about those tortillas. One difference in Tex-Mex food is serving flour tortillas, not corn, as in most Mexican restaurants. Prior to COVID, on a busy Saturday, we do 10,000 tortillas in a day, Bergstrom said matter-of-factly. 10,000 in a day. The dough is made from flour and several ingredients which are proprietary, Bergstrom said cagily. The masa is rolled into 1-ounce balls in the kitchen by special needs people and high school students, then placed on sheets on a bed of flour. Racks of these sheets are wheeled into the middle of the dining room where the Besco brand tortilla maker squats inside a glass enclosure. There, an employee drops the balls one at a time into the hopper where the masa is flattened between 2 electrically heated press plates at 385 degrees. This might be where the magic happens. In the early years, the tortillas were flatter, but they tended to get stuck in the machine, so the plates were adjusted and the tortillas were no longer quite so flat. We've specifically made them thicker. Guests say, these are like my grandma's, because grandma couldn't get them paper thin, Bergstrom said. The tortillas pop out on the first of 4 griddles. By the time they drop onto the 4th griddle, they're puffed up from steam. Or is it pride? The machine can turn out 850 tortillas in an hour if necessary. Keeping up with demand while not getting so far ahead that tortillas are not delivered warm to tables is a balancing act. At busy times, servers line up by the tortilla maker to fulfill an order. Customers enjoy watching the tortillas be made. Children exclaim that they want to grow up to make tortillas. The tortilla machine gets a daily workout. It's turned on at 9 or 10 a.m. and runs until 9 or 10 at night. It runs all the time, Bergstrom said. He has a couple of backup systems if needed and a repairman on call. With Riverside County in the red tier for reopenings, remember this is 2020, Ancho's returned to dine-in service at 1/4 capacity 2 weeks ago, amid uncertainty of whether they'll have to go back to outdoor dining only, given the county's fluctuating numbers. If Ancho's weren't debt-free, Bergstrom said, the restaurant might be done for. Thankfully, that's not the case. One break-even year, he said, can be survived. Ancho's 31st anniversary is November 7th. We were speaking next to the tortilla machine where Gloria Gonzalez was busily at work. You have to include this, Gonzalez told me solemnly. We make these every day with a touch of love. I looked at Bergstrom quickly. If love was one of those proprietary ingredients, suddenly revealed to the world, he didn't let on. We doing all right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. This is from October 2023. The headline of this is, On Riverside's Mount Rubidoux, Walking the Trail, Watching the People. As cited here the other day, I had to be in Riverside on Saturday evening, then back in Riverside Sunday afternoon. That would have meant a lot of back and forth driving time, so an offer to stay over in a Riverside friend's basement Airbnb was appreciated. This arrangement let me fulfill a personal goal. Trolling people on the internet from the proverbial basement? No. It was to wake up in Riverside, for the first time no less, and then do a morning hike up Mount Rubidoux. I did wake up, but not at the crack of dawn, so the envisioned early start didn't come off. Then I felt a compulsion to read the Sunday newspaper, without which my morning would have felt incomplete before leaving. But after a quick breakfast, I got to the parking lot at Ryan Bonomenio Park by 10:30 a.m. I'd climbed Mount Rubidoux before. In fact, it occurred to me that I'd gone up twice, once in 2021 and once in 2022. Here was my 2023 hike. Apparently this is an annual tradition. I meant to go up more often though. Some folks go up daily. When I'm in Riverside, it's almost always for work. We don't have an hour plus free for exercise. And frankly, going for a hike up the mountain in work attire might look a little unusual. Mount Rubidoux, for the uninitiated, is mildly strenuous, but not a traditional hike or climb. All you're doing is walking on an asphalt path that spirals around the mountain to the 780-foot summit. According to my fitness tracker, the climb was the equivalent of 12 flights of stairs. Few flights of stairs offer the people-watching opportunities at Mount Rubidoux. At least 200 people were out, I'd guess, at various stages of the path. Most walkers are relatively fit, loosely defined, but entire families were going up and moms pushed strollers. In the early stretch, a couple just ahead of me was trotting, the man going up backward, which meant he was facing me. But at the bend by Huntington Rock, they stopped to rest in the shade. I kept walking. "You're passing us," the man joked. I walked backward so I could face him as I said playfully, "You are running backward." He shrugged and said his wife needed the break. Farther along, a very skinny guy in his 20s, dressed all in black, wearing a hoodie, long shorts, cap, and headphones, was sloping down the hill, his face expressionless behind white sunglasses. Up around another bend, a fit man with gray hair, wearing a t-shirt and shorts, suddenly broke from the paved path to take a shortcut, a dirt path almost straight up the mountain toward the summit. He was doing it at a run. I couldn't get my phone free from my pocket in time to catch a photo. He was already halfway up. His wife, seeing my reaction, told me her husband is a wildlands firefighter who's used to rough terrain. He's trying to get back into shape, she explained. "Look at him go," I marveled. "He's a little billy goat," she said. I continued walking on the paved path. I'm no billy goat. Up around another bend or two on the shady side of the mountain, small groups of people were descending. Soon came the firefighter. He was running back down. I'm only a disinterested observer, but his efforts at getting back into shape seemed pretty far along. From the path on the sunny side, I paused to gaze out over downtown. After 3 years of writing about Riverside, more landmarks are identifiable to me. For instance, Evergreen Cemetery, Say Hall, the library. To be honest though, landmarks are easy to pick out at street level. From this height, most of downtown just look like distant rectangles. I decided not to strain my eyes or my brain any further and resumed walking. At the Peace Tower, the castle-like structure built in 1925, I took the stone steps up to the bridge, then crossed the bridge over to the mountain. From there, I scrambled up the dirt and rock slope the last few yards to the summit. As with the last time I did this, I half regretted it. It's harder than it looks, but I made it. At the top, a broad plateau, I walked around a little, seeing the cross at one end, the American flag at the other, and an enterprising fellow selling cold drinks from a cart. I didn't envy him pushing a cart uphill 2 miles. Then I headed down. It was a warm morning. I was surprised how many people were wearing sweatshirts. I wasn't surprised how many were wearing sweaty shirts. It was nearly 80 degrees. Well, I had to go up Rubidoux more often than I do. June through September would be good months to avoid. Near the mountain's base, a 3-generation family was starting up. The mother said to her son, who was about 3 and was bounding ahead of her, "You'll really like looking down from the top, Andrew." He probably would. I certainly had. At the entrance, a mother and father watched in amusement as their daughter, who might have been 2, climbed her own Rubidoux, a sloping boulder some 3 feet high. She got halfway up its incline before being outmatched and turning around to clamber down. Then the 3 headed up the path together. She'll like the view from the top too. And if she keeps practicing, who knows? She might even end up a wildlands firefighter. One more?
Okay.
All right. I mean, it's no work on your part, right?
More.
This is from last Sunday. Headline, Native Plants Booster and Journalist was rooted in Riverside. Gardening writer Jeanette Morantos died February 7th at 8:70 while on assignment in Riverside. She was born in Riverside too on March 13th, 1955, and spent nearly half her life here. Riverside was her native soil. We attended the same United Methodist Church in Riverside in early days. Chris Lovekin, a retired reporter and friend of Morantos, tells me. We both graduated from Poly High and then UC Riverside. We both worked for the Press Enterprise. She was a great observer of life. Morantos joined the PE in 1973 while in college. Among her unglamorous duties over the next 6 years, taking dictation from correspondents in the field, writing headlines for the Bridge and Advice columns, and compiling weather data. Yet all these years later, Bill Linehan, then a copy editor, remembers her vividly as outgoing and effervescent, saying she would enter the newsroom with good-natured energy. Morantos moved on in 1980 to Washington, where she reported for the Wenatchee World, and taught high school journalism before returning to Riverside. Everyone returns eventually. In 2014, hired the next year by the Los Angeles Times, she had a grim assignment, the Homicide Report series. The newspaper tracked every homicide in Los Angeles County and wrote profiles of each victim to humanize the death toll. Morantos is said to have relished the work, but after 3 years of attending funerals and speaking with angry or grieving family members, all of this while living in Riverside, she contributed some change of pace stories about gardening, a lifelong passion. She was always a gardener and loved native plants, his son Dimitri Smith tells me. Reader interest was high. The Times gave her a new assignment, dubbed the Plants Beat. Gardens, farmers markets, and California native plants were regular topics of her stories and monthly newsletter. Expansively, she also covered topics like human composting, the Eaton and Palisades fire sites, and wildlife crossings. In 2021, after her husband's death, she left Riverside for Ventura, where she bought a house around the corner from her son Dimitri, his wife, and their newborn son, and filled her garden with sunflowers, edibles, and vegetables. On February 6th, the Plants Beat brought her back to Riverside for a California Native Plant Society conference. She was driving out of town afterward when she suffered a torn aorta. At Riverside Community Hospital, she underwent emergency surgery and 7 hours later died. It could have happened anywhere. It happened to occur near the hospital where she was born, Dimitri says. She was born and died in the same hospital. A writer of Morantos' talents really could have done something with that. Next item, leveling up. Let me catch you up on some other Riverside items, starting with my February 1st column on the State of the City event, which was themed Leveling Up. I enjoyed your column this morning, had more meat than usual, but could you possibly explain what the heck leveling up means? Asked the puzzled Mary Sue Berkeley. It means improving, in a word. Leveling up was originally a video game term that referred to players advancing to the next level and unlocking new abilities. Now it's a buzzword applied to aspects of real life. Rather than meat, reader Tracy Kahn found that column to be mostly gristle. She calls it a string of complaints, many baseless and superficial, such as having to go down from the parking lot and take an escalator. Advises Tracy, you seem not to like Riverside, so perhaps you should refrain from writing about Riverside in the future. Can I at least finish today's column? Next item, sweet and sour. In that same column, I referenced a Riverside Raising Cane's restaurant with oversized lemon sculptures and a lemon-themed mural facing the busy three-way corner of Magnolia, Central, and Brockton Avenues. I wondered, why do the Riverside-themed sculptures outside the restaurant depict lemons, not oranges? Reader Dan Meyer believes the lemons are there as a tribute to the Palm Heights neighborhood's history as a lemon-growing district. Cane's is right across Central from the old boundary. So the lemons are more historically correct for the location, even though the parent navel orange is a few blocks down the road, Meyer says. Superfan Tracy Kahn, meanwhile, informs me, you don't know a lot about Riverside since you think oranges are the only citrus that was grown here. The lemon sculptures outside Raising Cane's are perfectly appropriate and very attractive. I asked historian and lifelong Riversider Steve Leck about all this. To my knowledge, lemons were never a large crop here in Riverside, but in Corona, Leck replies. I decided the lemons are there because Cane's is known for their lemonade, which is their signature drink, not because of lemons being grown here. A representative of the city's planning department, supplied with both theories, settles the matter. Cane's presented the art installation to staff as part of the entitlement process, the staffer writes. They chose to include lemons as it aligned with their menu. Bingo.